Hello everyone, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Max, and today I'm going to be doing my review for Loki Episode 1. Alright, so the first episode of Loki I would definitely say is the strongest pilot of any of the Marvel Disney Plus shows. I've seen a lot of people say this, and I do have to agree. It felt like we jumped right into the story rather than having to have a lot of background. And yes, we got a lot of background on things like the TVA, but it still progressed with things like Loki's emotions and the shift in the character. So I think it was definitely the pilot that was done the best. And I'm really excited to see what the structure of the show is after what they did with this episode. Now, some of the things that stood out to me from this episode include Loki's emotions, the things we learn about, like items such as the Infinity Stones, and the TVA in general. So when it comes to Loki's emotions, I think it was really interesting how we've heard that this is going to be a new version of Loki, and everybody thought it would be kind of like a more dramatic or in-depth look at the 2012 Loki. And while we still may get that in this episode, we definitely saw the emotional side of him when he saw his mother's death because of his actions. So I think that was a really interesting thing to include in the first episode, because if they're already showing us this much of a change with the character, I can only imagine how much we will get moving forward and what the character might go through. Now, yes, I think that was real emotion from Loki, but we did see that he is very much still the god of mischief, and he, doesn't mind messing with the TVA. He doesn't mind, really anything. And that all changed for him when he saw the Infinity Stones in the desk drawer. And I think this really puts the TVA into perspective, not only for us, the audience, but for Loki. For us, the audience, it lets us know that, yes, the TVA is pretty much way bigger than anything we've ever seen, because they use Infinity Stones as paperweights. And for the past 10 years in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Infinity Stones have been the centerpiece of everything going on in the films, essentially. So seeing them kind of thrown around was really something to let us know kind of how important they are. And for Loki, it was really interesting seeing his character and the reaction, because he had just come off of failing to take over New York, let alone the world, and he was wanting to, be the god of space, as Mobius called him. And here he is with, seeing the Infinity Stones that are basically worthless, knowing that the TVA kind of, like nothing happens without going the way it should, and that's what the TVA is there for. So they're higher up than the Infinity Stones, and I think that was really interesting for them to include in this episode, because it lets us know either one, Loki will have a new goal of taking over the TVA, and that might be his new obsession, or he will realize that he can't be the god of everything because he doesn't know really anything about the TVA, and he even thought it was like a hoax or something, he says at some point in the episode. So that leads me into the TVA in general, and I think this really will set the stage for the MCU moving forward, not only with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, or, possible future shows with Wanda, or whatever they end up doing. I think it's going to be really interesting with us knowing in the back of our minds that there's this organization that is essentially running and keeping everything in check. And I wonder how much the TVA is going to play into that, or maybe by the end of Loki, they will reform or fall similar to how S.H.I.E.L.D. did. And if not, I think it would be something that they would need to bring up quite a bit, because of how largely established it seems to be in just the first episode of Loki. Now, some other standouts from this episode were Mobius. I think Owen Wilson is doing a great job with this character. Yes, we've only seen him in one episode, but I think his kind of no-nonsense yet playful back and forth with Loki is a really interesting dynamic, because he really doesn't have any fear or feel much towards Loki besides being interested in his life. So he's able to show him things like Phil Coulson's death, his mother's death, and kind of the ramifications of everything he does without feeling much of anything. And I don't think, at this point, 2012 Loki had really dealt with anybody like that. Even someone like Thor. There was always the emotional aspect in there, but Mobius and the TVA are very much play it by the books and make sure everything goes as it should. and they don't really have any sympathy for Loki's emotions or anything, so they're able to show him all of these things that Loki might not otherwise think about, and I think that'll be a great aspect that hopefully heavily plays into the show, because it will develop this version of Loki even more. Now, something this episode made me wonder is what time, or like what, I know there's no like set time in the TVA, but are we technically bringing 2012 Loki into modern day MCU? Or is that like the TVA in, what would be 2012? And that's a question that I kind of have in how Loki could connect to other things. And it said that this show might connect to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But I think they had pulled back a little bit with that, so maybe it'll be more of its own thing now. But if it is set in 2012, this could be a way for them to kind of give Loki his own missions with the TVA. And I know Gregg mentioned that when he was talking to Tom Hiddleston, that they mentioned they were working on a season 2 of Loki, and I believe that might start filming soon. So this makes me wonder if Loki will be its own contained thing, or if we will see possibly this Loki move either ahead, or, if he is in the 2021 MCU, if he will be somehow brought into that, or maybe we'll see him as a TVA agent somewhat reformed. And I just think the idea of not really knowing anything about time in terms of how the TVA works is a aspect of the show that they could play off a lot, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So that's about all I have for now. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you like it, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.